Welcome to the Garden of Edun. Dami be asking the questions for the answers that you want to hear. All you gotta do is sit back, grab a chair, or listen up while you clean and cook. Take a leaf from the creative's book. These gems open your mind and your heart. Okay, the show's gonna start. Cheese! Welcome back to the Garden of Edun podcast, everyone. I'm your host, Dami Edun, and today we have a very, very intriguing episode in store for you with my special guest, David. So, David is a dating and intimacy coach for the platform The Authentic Man, where he coaches, runs podcasts and workshops to help men improve their dating life. And his tagline, which I really like, is empowering men to create conscious relationships, which I'm sure we're going to dive into a lot more today. David, how you doing, man? How are things?
I'm good. Feeling well. Feeling, as we were saying before, I just did a few kilometer hike this morning, so I'm feeling energized.
Yeah, and you're doing it out in the sunny, lovely Portugal as well. So I can't say I'm not a little bit jealous, but soon I'm soon gonna be there. Soon gonna be there. Fingers crossed.
Soon come.
Yeah, man. It's funny actually, because I always look back at the moment that that we met as a big turning point, because for those listening who don't know. I've mentioned it a few times on the podcast, but I had a very profound existential crisis between 2018 and 2019. And I remember meeting you and Ahmad, shout out to him, at one of Hayley Quinn's events. And you guys were talking to me about a lot of your experience in dating, and then also I think you'd both been on ayahuasca retreats, and you both really helped me a lot. So I've always thought, had you in as I've always held that moment as an important moment, because it just helped me in that moment of crisis. So appreciate you, man.
No, man, you're so welcome. So I'm just, I'm more than anything, I'm really happy that we were able to guide you, help you, lend some support and assistance on your journey and what you were going through in those moments. That's, as someone who does this work, because I know the need, and sometimes I've been through those same sort of crises, to know that, my words or what I've said, or even what I didn't say, was able to help you. Really, it really touches me. Thank you.
No, it was a very important moment. I think like you said, I guess we all have moments where you feel like really detached from reality, and that just kind of gave me the necessary grounding that I needed just in that point. So no, it's much appreciated, and I'm sure that's that's the level of change and positive impact that you're having with the people that you're working with and your clients. So long may that continue, man. Just to get started with the questions that I have for you, bro. I'm really curious to dig back into who you were growing up, because I feel like obviously that has a massive impact into who we are as adults. And obviously, because of the lane you're in now as a dating and intimacy coach, it would be really good to picture the journey from youth into a lane like that. So I'm curious to know, what was your dating life like as a youngster, and were you always the guy at school that had the game and then went through school like that, or was it more of a zero to hero type situation? What was going on for you, David?
Yeah, I'll take you back to, funny enough, the thing that comes back to me is my first kiss. We always remember our first kiss.
Yeah.
I was 13 years old. There was a girl who, it's funny actually, she crossed my mind the other day. We actually knew each other for many years after our first kiss at 13 years old. And I remember we kissed, like boyfriend and girlfriend kind of thing. And she went and told everyone it was really sloppy and really bad. And I was like, oh my God, how did I mess this up? So after that, I was just kind of like, a bit devastated by that. And to
Mm.
be honest, like at school, like women had no interest in me, and I didn't really have much interest in women up to the age of probably like 16 or 17, like maybe when I started to get into my, 18 or so, 16, 17, 18. But really between like 13 and 16, I was more like, let's play football. Like I had, the odd experience with girls, like, the girl I first kissed, we would have, some experiences after that.
Mm.
But I wasn't really any sort of Casanova. Women at school, the school I went to didn't really pay me any mind at all. No game, no chat. I just, you know what? I had gone to a boys' school for 5 years before I switched schools at 13.
Right.
So when I went to kind of mixed school, I was like, oh, girls. Then they're not like little girls that I remember from being like, 7, 8 years old. These are like, girls. So I remember in my mind being very much like, some of the boys, they really treat the girls differently. I could really see this at, like at that age. So I
Yeah.
remember consciously being like, okay, so how do I treat the girls? And I remember just thinking to myself, I'm just going to treat them like I treat the guys. I'm going to be nice and cool and, chill, get to know them, whatever. And it meant that what that gave me was really good grounding in terms of like knowing how to just talk to girls, talk to girls in this very friendly, decent way. But it didn't mean I was any there was no game there. It was just like, I was like the girl's best friend. Like
Right. Yeah.
I was that guy that women would come to and be like, oh, my boyfriend, this guy I really like this guy. So I found myself at, definitely between kind of 15, 16, like fancying this girl who's my best friend, and her telling me all about the guy that she likes. And I'd be sitting there thinking, but I
Oh
really like you, really want you.
no.
So that was kind of,
That is the worst situation to be in, bro. I can't lie. I've been there. It's horrible. It's horrible.
and I think back to it now, and I like, in many ways, like I said, it's still been really good stead in a lot of ways.
Mm.
Because I just knew how to talk to women. I understood their issues and problems and, what was going on. So when I kind of led me later into years of like university, which was a bit of a watershed for me, really shifted because I'd spent probably between the years of like 17, 18, maybe a year before I went to uni,
Mm.
going to the gym. I had a girlfriend actually between 16 and 17, and then we broke up and I was devastated, heartbroken, absolutely heartbroken.
Yeah.
I remember it happened around Christmas, and I remember just sitting eating ice cream constantly. And my mum was like really worried about me as I sit home eating ice cream out the tub. And funny thing is now, like me and her are really good friends. We're still really good friends now. Like, that was like 20,
Yeah.
going on 20 years ago. I spoke to her last week,
Wow.
actually. We had a good chat. So we're good friends. And I went to uni after that. And I remember very early on, women being really interested in me. And I was like, what's this? This is weird. I'm not used to this. Like girls like talking to me
Jeez.
and, like, because I'd gone to the gym. So girls were like pinching my arms and being like, like you got big arms or things like that. I remember being like, wow, I'm not used to this,
Yeah.
but I just was, nice and decent and quite honest. And I remember being at uni and being like, okay, I'm not looking for anything serious to start with. I don't want a girlfriend and blah, blah, blah. So I think my uni years were probably quite typical of a lot of men, dating lots of women, sleeping around a lot, getting drunk a lot, that sort of thing. Which I took into my early 20s. Wasn't always a great boyfriend to the girlfriends I had, because I didn't really know how to communicate. I didn't really understand, I'd be like, why is she upset about this thing? I just, I was late by 2 hours. What's her problem? So I took that into my 20s. And then there was kind of a moment where mid-20s, and
Yeah.
I just felt like my life was starting to go up and upward trajectory. I was working in tech. I had a good job. I was starting to earn good money. I just got my first place, just moved into that. I wanted to holiday in interesting places. And I wasn't meeting women that matched my level of ambition and want for curiosity and wanting to experience what life had. I was meeting a lot of girls and, not women who just wanted to kind of party, get drunk, talk about handbags and buying clothes. And whereas those things were of some interest to me, I was also interested in like traveling to certain places, weekend holidays, that sort of thing. Like even
Right.
learning about myself, self-development.
Yeah.
And I wasn't
Yeah.
meeting any women in that way. So like a lot of people, I went on, I picked up a book called The Game. I read that, and then...
Hey there, Garden of Edun podcast listeners. Sorry to interrupt this episode. I just wanted to say thank you for watching and listening. If you get value from this podcast, from the guests sharing their perspectives on their journeys, I would appreciate if you could share this with maybe one or two people that you know will get something out of it. If you like the podcast, please subscribe or follow it on whichever audio platform you're listening to it on. We've got more exciting content coming up with athletes, musicians, comedians, journalists, sharing their journeys towards mastery. And now back to the show. Oof.
Somehow
Great
over
book,
a
by the way.
period of... Great book. Yeah.
Like good
book.
story. Good story.
Good story.
At the least, yeah. Sorry, go
Good
on.
story, but some questionable methods when we look back now. Some really questionable things happened in that book. So then I kind of started to coach out of nowhere, but I didn't really gel completely with the game and all it was teaching, these tips and tricks and magic tricks and like lines and stuff. I was more like, hey, let's just have fun. Me and my friend Ahmad, we really figured out that if you're having fun in a club, right, or a bar, anyone you meet will want to be with you because you're having fun. So we started to figure out, it's like, okay, wait, so if we go to a bar or club and have a really good time, people will gravitate towards us, and the women we meet will want to spend time with us anyway. So when we're having fun and we're talking, it's all very natural to have fun, and in terms of progressing things to the next level is it's something that we kind of had a grasp of then. So that was a big learning for me, but also it's probably the first time I was around other men who were trying to make themselves better, right? And I think it was a very pivotal moment because it was like, I'm around other men who are trying to better themselves and be better men. And I think that was really important because a lot of the guys I was meeting then, most of the men I worked with, the other coaches, were incredibly good-hearted men. Some of them I still know now. They were loving. They wanted to get to know people. They wanted to connect. They wanted to have fun. And I did that whole coaching thing for a while, got out of that because I just, I got a girlfriend and I felt there was some misogynistic tones to some of the men that I met. Did a load of self-development just for my own personal understanding of myself. My relationship with my parents was one of the big things I kind of looked at and worked on for many years. And then did some traveling with an ex-girlfriend. We broke up in 2016, 2017 time. And then I went off to Peru, did ayahuasca there. That really kind of woke me up. That really cleared out a lot of the emotional debris that was stopping me from communicating, expressing myself emotionally and feeling as well. There was a lot stopping me from feeling. And then I spent the next 6 months traveling through kind of South America into Central America, just really connecting with people that I met, like really being curious and interested in, what are you about? What do you want to do with your life? What are you feeling right now? And like being really open with myself. And I started to see that people just want to be understood. People just want to connect. People want to hear who you are. People want to express themselves honestly and openly without judgment. And this is the key to connection. So when I came back from my travels, I started to just live by these rules with my friends, my old friends. And I saw a lot of men who were struggling with depression and so forth that I knew. And fast forward, AJ asked me, he was like, should we do something with all this dating knowledge? Because a lot of the dating knowledge we saw was rubbish. We saw a lot of this, like, do this, say this, don't do that, say this. If she texts you, wait 2 hours, like all that strategic stuff.
Right.
So would you say
that was the that was a factor that gave you the courage to assert yourself as dating coaches in that respect then? Noticing that there was something that was lacking within what a lot of coaches were teaching men.
Yeah. I think we hadn't really decided we were going to be coaching then. At that point, it was just like, let's start a podcast.
Right.
And, speak our message and what we've seen. And, the coaching kind of came later because I'd already done coaching many years before. I had some understanding of coaching and I had, that was years ago, that's probably more mentorship than coaching.
Mm-hmm.
So then when, the podcast 1 year ticked over, someone just said to me one day, a guy I used to work with, he said, "Oh, David, like I'm having some issues with my dating. Do you think you could help me? I know you used to do this sort of thing." I said, maybe we can have some conversations. And that really started the journey of getting back into coaching again, which has led me to, now I'm going through formal, qualification in transformational coaching. So I have a real grounding in the technologies. That should come through in the next few weeks. So yeah, that really started off, and the ideas of percolating of like vulnerability, openness, honesty, open-heartedness, connecting, leadership, all these things started to be percolated and kind of come together around that period. And even up till now, I'm still formulating ideas. Like one of the things that I'm really seeing now for myself in my own relationship and the relationship with my clients is leadership and how as men we relate to our masculinity is really central to how we date, how we are in relationship, and interrogating that and looking at that and looking at where those ideas have come from and starting to go, what ways of being do I want to embody as a man? Because we don't often ask ourselves that question. We just go with what we've seen around us, and it's like take it in and decide and embody.
Yeah, it's a mad journey you've been on, David. Like similar to you, I remember when I was in uni actually, and I was with my ex-girlfriend at the time, and I think I read like a book which was about similar to the game, and it was talking about all these like techniques and methods, and I remember getting so paranoid by it because I was thinking in my head, I read it and thought, fuck, someone's gonna use these magic tricks and like take my girlfriend away from me. Obviously, that's some deeper rooted issues that I had there, but that's the first thing that came in my head, and I just thought, wow, this is so like cold and calculated, and I don't know, just like you said, it lacks like the depth of actually thinking about the connection that you have with the people that you're interacting with, as opposed to, right, I need to do A, B, C, which will equal D and E, and then I can get to F, and having that like mechanical process to it, whereas it's a lot more grey and nuanced, and there's a lot more, I guess, for lack of a better word, magic within connecting with people, as opposed to just um, dropping down techniques and that kind of thing. So yeah, I definitely see how you came into that path of realizing a connection was important. Um, One of the things you also mentioned as well is that you saw a lot of men who were also trying to improve their dating lives and like trying to find the secret or the method that was going to help them unlock something within them. But obviously, there's also quite a lot of men who may feel a lot of like shame and embarrassment and fear because society expects them to be good at connecting with women, and if they're seen to want to practice or learn, they feel a sense of shame, and um it can be hard for them to even want to improve because it feels inorganic. So how do you help those men get over that bridge and actually embrace the fact that they need, or embrace the feeling that they want to improve their dating lives, and that it's a good and healthy thing for them to do?
So I think, to anyone listening, it's like, this may be an area where you think you should know how. And the question I would ask yourself is, why? Why do you think you should just know how? Do you think it should be an innate thing that you should know how to do? Is it like, remember, human beings get taught how to walk, right? Human beings don't know how to walk when we're born. We can't walk. We have to learn
Facts.
to walk by seeing other people. So we can eat. I think we know how to eat when we're born, but we don't necessarily know how to have conversation. We have to learn how to talk. So if you believe that you should know how to do this, why? And if your answer is, oh, because other people can, everyone else can, everyone else who? Because I can tell you it's not everybody. It's some people are innately good. And even they learn from people around them without really seeing it.
Mm.
It's a bit like you start a new job and you've got a new computer system to use. You don't get upset with yourself if you can't use it instantly because no one's ever taught you. You take the time to learn, you listen, you take it in. Or if you want to better yourself at work, you take courses and you do learning and all these sorts of things to be better at your job, to move through the ranks. Maybe you want to get promotion, maybe you want to switch roles, that sort of thing.
Mm.
And I see dating and relating as no different. They are skill sets that we must learn, right? Some people learn just through their life experience. Maybe they have parents who were very outgoing. Maybe they have parents who were very focused on socializing. But some of us, like myself, had to learn. And if you believe you should know something about learning it, then maybe that's the mindset that's blocking you from getting where you want to get to. So it's like interrogating, like, what is this? Oh, I should know. I should know how. It's like, sex is the same thing. Intimacy. A lot of men believe, I should just be good. Well, why do you think that? Why should you just be good? You might know how to do the basics, putting it in and moving around a little bit. But being good, being great is a very different thing, right? That takes understanding, learning. Like, I've studied Tantra for 4 years and practiced in that time. And I've learned things I would have never come to on my own. So there's some of that shame we have around learning is this idea that we should know. But also it's like, what does it mean about me if I have to learn? Like, what is the meaning you place on yourself if you have to learn? And look at that, because that's the thing that's stopping you. Maybe you think, if I have to learn, then I'm weird, or I'm stupid, or there's something wrong with me, and all these things. And none of those things are true. You've just decided those in your head. Or someone once said it to you, and you believed it because one person said something to you that it's true. That those meanings are not true. They are just arbitrarily decided upon by you. You could decide a new meaning. Like, if you want to learn about dating and relating, the meaning you could give that is that you want to be a better man. Like, you want to be a great boyfriend. You want to meet the person of your dreams instead of just settling for something average. Now, if we look at it with that meaning is empowering. We can start going, I can align with that. Like, I want to be a better man. Maybe, we look at someone like Tim Ferriss, for instance, a man who is about learning everything. He'd learn anything. I know that from listening to his podcast, he's gone to all sorts of, counseling and therapy and relating and teaching him how to relate, how to be better at things. And if it's good enough for a man like him, or, the many other famous men who have, gone to learn about dating and relating, then it's good enough for all of us.
That's a very strong point, man. The reframe is key, because I guess, like, in my experience, there is a lot of shame about learning, and it's because you're not the guy. That's the message. Oh, you're not the guy if you had to do that, if that makes sense. And just reframing that, like, actually, I want to be a better person. I want to be a better boyfriend. I want to be a better lover. I want to understand women and myself more. And then that almost neutralizes the other things that are taking shape in your mind, and actually probably starts to unravel the process of what other thoughts and what other stories do I have in my head that are making me the person I am, just in life in general. And I don't know if it's something that you've experienced, but watching the stories of other people who have become dating coaches, it's eventually led them on a path of, like, self-discovery, by this path almost opening up the can of worms to themselves. So how would you say that journey's been on your side for you, like, in terms of opening up to your own internal processes and stories?
Yeah, I think we go through a few stages in our learnings with dating, and this might apply to other things, and this is just really coming to me as you ask the question. It's like, the first stage is like, what do I need to do? We need to really focus on that word do. What do I need to do? That involves what we say, how we move, how we look, the things that we do, the surface level stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, okay, in dating, it's like I need to say different things. I need to wear different clothes. I need to get a different haircut, all those kind of stuff. I need to learn these lines. I need to, if a girl strokes her hair, that means that she's interested. So I need to stand closer. That's all in the realms of doing. Right. So that kind of started off there. And then the next layer on, I think, is then going, let me understand the other. Right. Let me start understanding the other a bit more. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So we start understanding the movements, like, well, what do women mean when they say certain things? Why do women do this, and this, right? There's a whole school of that. And then we go reflect back again to ourselves, which is like, how am I being, right? And this is where we get a bit more kind of far more existential, because you start to realize that, like, okay, the stuff that I was doing doesn't have that much impact. It has a little bit of impact, but not massive. The stuff the other is doing has a little bit more impact, but it's not necessarily the main chunk of the cake. How I'm being is the majority of causing how things turn out, right? So we might go, okay, I need to be more confident. I need to be more confident. So we start diving into that. And why do I not feel confident? Okay, maybe I was told as a child that I was stupid, or I was useless, I was ugly, or whatever, right? These are all things we've heard and been told. I was told, I'll never forget a girl telling me at 18 years old, she wanted to sleep with me, and I said no. And she later told me, the only reason I want to sleep with you is that you're a nice guy, and I thought you'd be, we've known each other a long time, but, I've always thought you were quite ugly. And I remember in that moment thinking and stopping and being like, wow. And I remember, then the funniest thing is, in my head, I heard her say that I'm a really nice guy, and I was just like, that's really nice to hear. The ugly part, I really didn't relate to it in the same way as I could have, right? And it's not because I'm arrogant. It's just because I never really believed I was a good-looking man. Even now, I don't necessarily believe I'm a good-looking man. So it's like, how am I being, right? So we back to that. It's like, how are you being? This is where it shifts just from dating, because it's like, why do I not feel confident? Oh, maybe a girl said to me I was ugly, or people ignored me at school, and all these sorts of things. It's like, well, that affects your dating, but where else does that affect? So it's like, people think of dating coaches a lot of the time, and they go, oh yeah, that's just going to be some sleazy guy who's going to tell a guy that, all women are lesser than men, and you need to dominate, and you need to trick her, and all those sorts of things. Now, that's never actually been any coaching I've ever done, right? And I know there's a lot of talk amongst certain circles of women that this is what dating coaches with men do.
Yeah.
But I'm working on with guys, I'm like, why don't you feel confident? What is the truth in this? Where does this affect your life? And they're like, oh yeah, well, at work I don't speak up. Okay, cool. So if you were confident, what are some of the things, let's start getting into that. If you were confident, what are some of the things you would do, right? What are some of the things you would say? Okay, I would do this thing. I'll do that thing. Okay, so that's actions you can start doing, because you can start to imprint your mind with this idea. But if you were confident, how would you be? How would you move through a room? How would you talk about yourself? How would you talk to yourself? And start looking at that, because that's going to help your dating life when you go up on a date and you meet a girl, or you got to approach someone in a bar, or approach someone, even on Tinder, your first message, if you come across with a bit more confidence, right? But that's not just going to help your dating life. That's going to help your career. That's going to help how you interact with your family. All these other areas of life start to shift. So as much as I concentrate on dating and relationships, it's like some of my clients come back to me and they're like, oh man, so since we've been working together, I'm making more money. I am standing up to my family. I've told my family who I really am, and things like this. And to me, those are the things that really are important over like being able to know what to say to a girl when you meet her at some place.
Yeah, wise words, man. And it's a journey that is like on a personal level. You see it kind of like filter out and bleed into the other areas, as you said. So yeah, if you're someone listening to this and thinking, I need to take some action, there's a little bit of encouragement for you.
Mm,
One of the other things you mentioned, actually, David, which I really want to dive into because I think it's something I didn't realize was important until maybe a couple of years ago, and that is actually masculinity. And I had this realization a few years ago with some of my like close friends, about the fact that we weren't really taught how to be men,
mm,
and it wasn't it's not necessary for the fact of like, most of my friends have had fathers present in their lives, so it's not even a case of, you know father figure not being around. It's more been a case of I actually haven't been taught how to be a man, and then looking at the wider society and realizing that, oh, this is actually quite a big problem in the Western world, I think, especially where masculinity is, either has a wrong or incorrect representation, or people aren't really connected to it, or it has a negative stigma towards it. And I kind of realized that, oh, I've been neglecting the fact that I need to, work on elements of my masculinity. And because this is an element of the work that you do, I'd be curious to know what you think the most important elements of masculinity, that we need to work on as men, especially in the Western world. Like, what are the elements that we've ignored and that we should start implementing to become more rounded and become more, aligned with that within ourselves? Because I think it's a big problem today.
mm. Yeah, I think the first two things that come to mind, and they're not the only things. I think one of the first things that comes to mind is feeling. Um,
Mm,
we have long suppressed our feelings and emotions. In We suppress feelings and emotions because we want to get results and we want to get things, make more money, whatever it may be, right?
mm-hmm,
So we suppress what we're feeling, so we numb ourselves to the world. We numb ourselves to the good, the good and the bad, right? You can't just say I want to feel the good things and not the bad. I had a
mm,
client come to me not too long ago, and he was just like, I used to believe I just wanted to feel the good and not the bad. And he said he suddenly realized he said, listened to a couple of episodes, and he said he realized that he'd been living in this state of just being okay. Never really good, never
mm,
really bad. And I said, when you cut off the low end emotions, the depression, the unhappiness, the sorrow, the despair, you cut off the joy, the ecstatic joy, zeal, all these, really intense, beautiful emotions as well. So one of the things I think we need to do is feel more, right? And this
mm,
is why this is so important, is because it then allows us to feel ourselves, our wants, our needs, our desires, but it allows us to feel other people and understand the world around us a lot more, because really everything that's being motivated in this world is from feelings, right?
mm,
You could argue even below that, like everything's been, is it being operated from a point of view, each individual is moving through a point of view of pain, and pain is still an emotion, trauma, or responses, are we all just acting from that place? But feelings is what's governing our world. And one of the things that
facts.
we lack so much in our world, and why the feeling part I think is so important, is compassion, right?
Mm,
What is the huge lack of thing that you see in people around is compassion, right? Is taking the time to empathy and compassion. I put them together. Empathy and compassion. Empathy is to feel what another is feeling, or to put one in someone else's shoes. If we can think of, some of the things that have been occurred due to toxic masculinity, which is a set of behaviors that are toxic and harmful to men, to all people, not just men, but those who are doing
mm,
them. You look at sexual violence against women, and you can
yeah.
even add in sexual violence against men, because there's statistics coming out now that like the largest perpetrators of sexual violence towards men are men as well. So
Mad.
when we look at that, it's like, okay, if we had compassion for the person, right, we are with these men who are exhibiting these toxic behaviors, if we had compassion for that person, right, we probably wouldn't do that act. There would be something in us to be like, I'm going to hurt this person. I don't want to hurt people, right? But there's also an element of compassion for ourselves, that we are feeling a certain way. Maybe we're angry, maybe we're upset, maybe we're in pain, maybe we have been abused. Because there's a part of us that often is we generate more anger because we're angry that we feel a certain way. We're angry that we have certain desires. But if we were to have some compassion for ourselves and others, our world would shift a lot, right? You see in the point of view of like, countries that are going through civil war or, race issues, all these things. If we stopped for a moment and had another 10% compassion for each other, these issues would shift drastically, because we would realize that we're not so separate. If I hurt you, I'm also hurting myself, right? Because I know I'm hurting you. I can't rationalize it. I can't suppress that emotion. It's still running there. So I think feeling would go a really long way for a lot of men. It would also make our relationships better. We'd be more connected. We'd probably find more passion in the things that we do, that we enjoy doing, that we want to really do. We'd, have to go and heal some of our dysfunctions with our families as well, because we've all got some dysfunction with our family when it comes to our parents, especially.
Yeah.
So I think that's a huge part, that feeling part. And then the second part for a lot of us men is being present, being conscious and present. And why I think this part is really important is we're very reactive, right? So maybe we're walking down the street. Actually, let's take a different example. Let me take an example of when I was maybe a younger man. I used to go to clubs. You're walking through the club. You step on someone's shoe, right? Said man turns to you and looks at you like he wants to kill you because you stepped on his shoe.
Yeah.
He's reacting to a script in his mind that if someone steps on your shoe, I need to be a certain way. Or if someone steps on my shoe, that is some sort of disrespect to my honor. He's just reacting. He hasn't even thought, wait, is that even true? Is that even real?
Yeah.
So through presence, we would have presence. We'd be here. We'd be in the moment, mindfulness, presence, that sort of thing. I would be able to go, someone stepped on my shoe. Oh, that hurt me a little bit. Oh, look, he just stepped on my shoe. It was an accident. I can go, bro, no worries, man. Cool. Like, you okay? Yeah.
Yeah.
The person says sorry and you're like, thank you. I understand you didn't mean that. Thank you very much. Averted. No problem, right? But then let's take this into our relationships, for instance. If we had a bit more presence, right? Say your girlfriend does something and you feel jealous, right?
Yeah, we've all been there.
Happens?
Oof, we've all been there. Everyone's been there.
Yeah. For a lot of people, the girlfriend makes them jealous. I'm not going to say the girlfriend the girlfriend does something and then we experience jealousy. That's really what's occurring, right? We have an emotional reaction to something because we give it some meaning about us. So I don't know, your girlfriend looks at another man very briefly, or you think she's looked at another man. Then you now have this emotional feeling of jealousy, right? Now, if you were present, right, really deeply present, you'd be like, oh, I'm feeling this emotion of jealousy. Why am I feeling this emotion of jealousy, right? Okay, I'm feeling jealous. Well, this, man looked at my girlfriend. Now I feel jealous. Well, he hasn't actually done anything. Nothing's actually occurred to me. It's the meaning I give it. Why have I given this a meaning that would lead to jealousy? I feel like I'm not enough. I feel like I'm not good enough. And maybe this man is making more money than me or better looking than me. And I'm scared that my girlfriend will leave me for a man who is better than me because I have, my self-esteem is a bit lower, or I don't feel I'm a good enough person. Now, if we took that in that moment and we then said to our partner, hey, I'm experiencing jealousy, because I still see that I have this feeling that I'm not good enough and, you're good for me. But I also recognize that is all a figment of my imagination, right?
Yeah.
Maybe your partner would turn to you and be like, oh, wow, that's amazing. Like, are you okay? Like, what happened? But what do most people do? They turn to their girlfriend and go, why are you looking at that guy for? Why did you make that happen? Why are you dressed like this? We react not from what's occurring. We react from this existing. We react to the emotion. But we react in the moment just like that. There's no presence, right? And we're not present with each other. We don't actually listen. We don't actually spend the time to connect. And if we did this, we'd live in a very different world from a point of view of men and masculinity. And I think those are two really core things that we can all do, right? We can all do more. We can all cultivate. We can all practice doing. That would make a huge shift in how we related to each other as men. I think, even if you we could even even if you had more presence, you would start calling out other men on their behavior and say, hey, dude, bro, that's not cool to say that, man. Like,
Yeah.
don't talk about women like that. That's not cool. Or, some of the other toxic behaviors you can look at, around, as I talked about earlier, like this desire for greed and desire for money. It's like, if you stop and think, wait a minute, what's the byproduct of this? Who am I hurting? Does my bank need to make another £1 billion this year so I get my bonus? But like, who am I hurting in the process of doing that? Is this meaningful? Like, does this really mean anything to me beyond being told that this is what I should do as a man? Like, questioning some of the narratives we've been told as men, like my value, and I think this is a narrative we must question. It's very important to stop and question this narrative around men. Is that men act and live as if all their value is in what they create and produce. Right?
Yeah.
So as a man, if I'm not making lots of money, I don't have a nice car, and I don't have a hot wife, I feel like I have no value, right? And we operate in the world with men. It's like, he's better than him because he's got loads of money, and it's like, it's rubbish. We all have intrinsic value as human beings, as our being, who we are. Because until we can move past this like system of value that's all about output, we'll never truly spend the time to look inwards, have the presence to look inwards, because we're caught up in these ideas, these stories from outside of us about our value and how we have to be. So we have to start to question these stories about what it means to be a man. Like, is that true? Is that useful? Is it harmful to the world? Is it harmful to me? Is it harmful to the people I love? We have to start asking these questions and get quite far in it. Like, if I say something sexist in this moment, I might say, that's harmless, what does that mean? But let's start rippling that a little bit. It's like, okay, I say that to this guy. He looks up to me, right? He might think this is how he needs to be. So when he then goes home, he might treat his sister or his next girlfriend a certain way. Is that doing harm? Yes. Is that doing harm to my mind? Am I quietly telling myself that it's okay to say those things or okay to do certain things? So we have to start like pulling back and asking these questions, because when we do, we'll start to see some truth, start to interrogate these ways of being as men.
I was, while you were speaking about that, I was reflecting on my own life, and the thing you mentioned about just the compassion, like compassion for another, compassion for yourself, and just seeing how that can like reduce the tension, the inner tension that you have in those moments where you're feeling jealousy, anger, or the other emotions that can cause negativity. How, because when you said it brought up another thought in my mind as well. And how would you help somebody who feels like they really have been hurt by someone, and if they're in fear that if they express compassion, that person could like trample over them or could take advantage of them? How do you allow people to still open their hearts to be able to do that, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, I think it's often we have this idea, if we have compassion for someone else and their situation, that it somehow means that we are backing down, or we are letting people win. We are letting them have the better of us.
Yeah.
Right? And that's still we're coming from this idea of win-lose. So if someone's, say your girlfriend's cheating on you, and use some of these examples because they're live examples for us all.
Damn.
Now, we might say, how can I have compassion for her? She did this to me, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Let me start by saying, what would make her do this? She doesn't care about me. Is that true? Like, really? Do you believe that? Or is that just easy for you to believe in this moment? Let's suppose that she cares about you, right? What would have her do that? Okay, maybe, self-sabotage, right? Self-sabotaging a perfectly good relationship with cheating. Maybe she has her own fears and worries about her value, and if she's good enough, and she's subconsciously created the situation. Or there's some underlying pain that she's feeling that, maybe we can't identify, but she's experiencing that has her do things that actually hurts her and what she really wants, right? or she doesn't even realize that these things are causing you pain. And I say this because, like, in my past, I've cheated, and I did those things without really thinking beyond, like, oh, it's just this act, no one will know, kind of behavior. But it's like, it
Yeah.
also caused me a lot of pain, because afterwards I had to carry that around. Like, I had to think about it. I tell myself how terrible I am as a person for doing something like that.
Yeah.
You try and rationalize it, but you always know what you did, and you always know what you did hurt you because you carried around that pain, and you had to carry that around. So you can have compassion for your ex-girlfriend who's cheated on you, because now she has to carry that around. She has to carry around the guilt of knowing that she did something that deeply hurt someone else, right? And that burden that we carry, that pain, is hard to carry. Like,
Yeah.
as much as we often say the guilty person, but the guilty person also has to carry that pain. And unless as much as we might rationalize things away, there's always a part of our psyche that knows when we've done wrong. It's as simple as that. No matter what we say when it leaves our mouths, like, I recently watched the Tinder Swindler, and I'm
Oh
just
my
thinking, like,
God. Oh my God.
you know,
I don't feel any compassion there from him, but go on.
no matter what, he knows he has done wrong and hurt people, and he has to carry that around. And maybe no one sees this. Maybe no one sees it in the light of day, right? But when
Right.
he's alone, he has to think about his actions. He has to think about the people he's hurt. And even if it crosses his mind a little bit here and there, he will carry around the knowledge of what's occurred, right? And he might be in front of cameras and in front of friends, always giving it, but there's part of him that feels empty. There's a part of that man that feels like an empty shell of a human being. And and if he's guilty of these things, which feels very conclusive from the documentary, he is just trying to show the world that he's somebody. Deep down, that guy thinks he is nobody. He thinks the world is cruel, and he thinks he's nobody, and he's trying to take out revenge on the world for his own lack and his own feelings of emptiness and nothingness that are deep inside him. And no amount of money, no amount of women, no amount of nice cars will fill that hole. That hole will just be there, and it will only get bigger, because the more you fill it, the bigger it gets. And that is his pain. And as much as, you might say, oh, how can you have compassion for that man? It's like, he's carrying that around. And you know what? I've felt emptiness in my life, right? I felt emptiness, and, it is not a nice feeling, no matter what you do. I try to sleep with loads of women to feel more worth and less empty. I try to party more, I try to make money more. And none of those things filled that empty hole. I still felt empty. So I can have compassion for that man, for what he must feel, right, deep down, that no one ever sees. And I can have compassion for that. And I know some people will be like, oh, how can you do that? But that allows me to be, I don't have to treat him with cruelty, right? Okay, what he did, it doesn't take away what he's done. But it's like, I can have compassion for him, right? I can have compassion for a lot of people, all sorts of crimes and stuff. But it's like, if we can start to be more compassionate to each other, we can go such a long way with how we interact and how we relate as human beings.
Definitely, man. Yeah, I think
There's
is
one thing I would add on there,
yeah.
right? And this is hard for some people to see, is everybody is a reflection of you, right? Everybody you meet is a reflection of you. Any behavior you see in someone, there is a tinge of this behavior that exists in you, even if it's only a little bit, right? Like, we can all think back, if we back still to the Tinder Swindler, we can all think of a time that maybe we stole some money. Maybe it was only £1 or a penny, or we stole a sweet from a shop, right? We took something, or we deceived somebody in some way, right? No matter how small or big. But this is just a reflection. And when we get so angry outwards, it's because there's a part of us that can't accept that we had that experience. We did that thing to someone else, and we can't be with it. So there's a lot there in that reflection piece, that if we start to be with that a bit more, it will allow us to look at our own behavior and go, okay, where have I swindled and lied to people in my life? Where have I, taken from people or taken advantage of people in my life? Oh yeah, I've done that too. Yeah, I've done that. Okay. And can I have compassion for myself that I did that in a time when maybe I didn't know any better? I didn't know as much as I knew now. yeah, I can. Does that reduce some of this anger I'm now feeling about someone else? It most likely will, because you understand that he is also a human being. He's also have his human experience in the way that you have him as well.
Yeah, yeah, that does make a lot of sense, and yeah, it's it's easy to see how us going through that exploration within ourselves of why it's triggered us so much when we see someone do something that we hate is actually because it's part of our own our own psyche. How do you feel we're moving as a society in that direction? Like, do you think we're becoming more self-reflective, or is it kind of like an ebb and flow back and forth around a certain like percentage, and we're not moving in into being more reflective?
I would say, I believe that we're definitely moving in the right direction, because ultimately I look around me and I hear people that I wouldn't normally heard talking about meditation. I hear
Mm,
people talking about reflective practices, about reading books, looking at themselves, doing the work. I hear so many more people having these conversations than I did maybe 10 years ago. Like I had a conversation with, I talk to people of all ages, through my coaching.
mm,
I spoke to someone in their early 20s, and this person was really looking at themselves and the things they'd allowed to happen in their life, and questioning and going, okay, this isn't how I want to be treated. I can see where I should have put out boundaries and stuff like that. And I was like, I'm thinking when I was in my early 20s, those things weren't really crossing my mind. So I think we are definitely moving in the right direction. Sometimes it doesn't feel that way because we look at the world and we have our media and we have our 24-hour news and we have our social
yeah.
media, and it can make us believe the world is a terrible place and nothing's good is happening. But when we move away from some of those places, like even, I see social media in a very different way, because my experience through social media has been for very positive in many ways. But it's like
Mm,
there's so much good and beauty in the world, like so much, right? And we just have to start to look at it, because we don't look at it. We don't spend the time to pay attention to the amazing things that other people do for each other and they do for even us. It's like, it's just to stop and go, oh, wow. Like, you know, even the little things I was driving earlier with a friend, and in here in Madeira, for instance, like people don't get angry when they drive. They are never seem to, what's it called? No one's ever beeping their horns. People are always patient and relaxed. And I'm like, oh, isn't that beautiful? Is that beautiful that people can do that? Like, and I
yeah.
know those are tiny things, but they are tiny things, like there's so much beauty in the human race. It's just that we spend a lot of our attention not looking at it and ignoring it because it doesn't suit the narrative that we're told that the world.
Mm,
Basically, if you watch the news, all you hear every day is a single sentence, right? Just packaged in different ways. The world is going to shit. That's the
yeah.
sentence in
Yeah.
different ways, right? And you're bombarded with this sentence every day, everywhere you go. Like, oh my god, this is happening. The world's going to shit. So
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
thing
That's
to
deep,
do is
man.
start seeing like the goodness in the world, like the man that smiled at you, the woman that helped you when you stumbled, or the person that offered you a drink who you don't know, or the charity work, like even down to just back to the Tinder swindler, right? Those young ladies have set up their own GoFundMe page, right?
Mm,
And when I last looked, their GoFundMe was at almost £200,000.
it's crazy. Like,
So
wow.
people have heard their story and been
Mm,
so deeply touched, and they have gone, this is horrendous that you had to go through this. I am going to dip into my pocket and give you money. Like, if that isn't the beauty of the human race and human spirit right there, I don't know
yeah.
what. Like strangers, like I know it's because they're on TV and blah blah blah, but to do that and to feel so deeply the compassion, the empathy, to go, I'm going to help you, right? Because what happened to you was horrible. Like, that's incredible. That's really,
Yeah.
when you see that, when you see the numbers, like I've been to the page and you look there, people have donated like £2,000, £3,000. Like, people feel other people so deeply.
Wow.
Like, and we haven't spent much time to think about that because all we focused on is the man that did the bad thing. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's a book I read years ago called Conversations with God, and
Mm.
um, it's by Neil Donald Walsh, and it really set me on my journey. Really, it's the first book of this type I read, and in it, the man is having a conversation with God, and there's a point where Neil Donald Walsh says, "God, why do you send floods and hurricanes and all these things?" And he said, "I don't send these things; they come along." And he goes, "Yeah, but they cause death and destruction. Why would you do that to us?" And he
Mm.
was like, they also give you an opportunity to see the most beautiful parts of yourselves. Because if an island is erupting, a volcano is erupting, you have a choice there. You can either leave those people to, die and what have you, or humanity can come together and do beautiful things by looking after them, saving them, rehousing them, and all these sorts of things. Because these events
Mm.
occur and they allow you to have the experience of being the best of who you are. Or you can choose to go a different way and give in to greed and selfishness and lack compassion and empathy. And it's like, it's a bit like this. We're always getting opportunities to experience ourselves as loving, deeply loving
Mm.
beings in any given moment. And we also get the opportunity to understand other people, empathize with other people. So I feel the world, I don't know, maybe it's just in my world, I feel the world is going in the right direction because more and more people are waking up to this idea that, like, we are not hugely separate. We're not completely separate
Yeah.
from one another. And, like, doing harm to you does harm to me.
Mm. Yeah. In my head, I'm just thinking of like the yin yang and the light within the darkness, and
Mm.
and going into that. Because yeah, even for me personally, like the last few weeks, I've been feeling like, yeah, this world is burning, and I've been losing a lot of hope just in the world and in humanity. But like you said, um, tapping into gratefulness and looking at the things that are actually happening in reality, and looking at, oh yeah, the person who held open the door and smiled at me, or like when I think on Friday I went to Tesco and it's late. It was late. It was like 11, half 11 in the evening, and I was walking down the road and this old woman was walking past me and she like smiled at me and I smiled back at her, and it was just like a really cool moment. I was like, oh, that was really nice. Like that doesn't really happen in Stratford, but yeah, like that's a sign, isn't it, of the goodness within our reality that we can tap into. So I do hear what you're saying. I'm gonna come back to this point when I re-listen to this and like loop it so I can really let that hit home. So thank you for that, bro. Um, going back to dating actually, and something which you've probably seen a really wide scale evolution of is online dating.
Mm.
And I actually did a bit of research about it before, and I found that now, like today, heterosexual partners are meeting online or the percentage of heterosexual partners that are meeting online has gone up from 2% to 39%,
Mm.
from 1995 to present day, which is obviously a huge jump in how people are meeting each other. But one of the things I've noticed that a lot of men are finding it very difficult, or finding, online dating to be quite uh, a minefield. Um, so, what kind of things do you um, do to help men improve um, their experience of the online dating game, because it is different to how it was even 10 years ago, let alone 15, 20. So it would be good to hear how you see that and what kind of things you're implementing with the men that you work with to navigate that in a healthy way, as opposed to being frustrated, complaining about it, etc., etc.
Mm. Mm. Yeah. There's some, tactical things you can do. I've had some conversations this week. It's like, let's have a look at your profile because that is the window into who you are. That is the place where that's your shop window. Now think about that. Your dating profile is your shop window. Now,
Mm,
is your shop window gonna look like some poorly managed charity shop. Yeah. Yeah. Sparse, maybe poorly put together, no thought and consideration for the overall feel and what, that's going to look like. Or is your shop window going to look like Harrods? Yeah. And to look like Harrods, you don't need no Harrods money. It's not money I'm talking here. And when I put it into that term, shop window, because it is a shop window. It's a photographs, it's some text, it's some bio. Are you putting in actual effort? Most guys just sling together a few pictures. Like, that's a picture of me. Yeah, that's a picture of me. That's a picture of me. Cool, I got 4 or 5 pictures. Done. Bio. I don't know what to say. Think for 5 minutes. Yeah. I'm an easygoing guy. I like to go to the pub. I like football. I support this team. I'm pretty open-minded. I'm looking for something that's like, I'm looking for someone who can, join me on my journey through life. Done. Now, that's the most vague, I reckon I've probably described, let's discount the male profiles that don't have anything in them, right? No bio, blah, blah, blah. I probably describe 80% of men's profiles right there, give or take a few words. Now, just think about that. 80% of men are showing up like that, yeah? Now, photos. Your photos give you an ability to tell a story in photos without words, right? Because you don't have that many words in your bio to play around with. So you got photos. So you have 3, 4 photos, maybe 5 max, right?
Yeah.
These photos are giving someone a peek into your life. Who is this man? Who is this man I'm swiping at? Is he the sort of man who takes care of a photo and actually knows how to look at a photo aesthetically, right? That's the first thing you're like, is this the sort of man that's going to make an effort to put together a decent profile? Your dating profile is how you potentially will meet the woman of your dreams, the woman you could spend the rest of your life with. Now, if you knock that up in 5 minutes, yeah, what are you telling anyone who lands on your profile?
Yeah, it's a tale of who you are, how you're seeing. Yeah.
How are you gonna date her? How are you gonna show up on a date? Are you gonna just throw something together that took you 5 minutes? How are you gonna show up for your relationship? Are you gonna be unthoughtful and unconsiderate? You're just sending these subliminal messages. So pictures, clear face shot, right? You need one of those in there. So someone can look at you and go, what does this person look like? This is what they look like.
Yeah.
Do the least into saying, have your, shave. If you shave, have the haircut looking slick, because you got to do what you can. You got to present yourself as best you can, right? So start with that. Now you got your other photos. Like, what are your hobbies? What are your interests? What are the quirky things that you've done in your life, right? Maybe you're into martial arts. Okay, well, throw a picture of that in. Maybe you have been to some obscure travel destination and you've got a fun photo where, maybe you're laughing, joking, maybe you're doing something silly. Okay, but if you've got that sort of personality, throw that in there. But you'll tell a story of who you are through your photos, because these are the ways in which someone will look at your photo and go, that's interesting. Oh, they're in this place. I've been to that place. Or, oh, wow, that looks like an intense situation. Or, oh, they're a boxer. Oh, wow, that's interesting. Or they do taekwondo, or whatever it may be. These is where you get to tell a story. And then inside your bio, it's like, who are you? What do you love? Use some language that's like, show some passion and things that you're actually interested in. Maybe you have an interest in certain types of theatre, right? Talk about it. Say that, Maybe you have an interest in, I don't know, some obscure type of Japanese anime or something like that. Like, talk about the things you're interested in. Like, have some description, some emotive language that someone can look at and connect with and feel. Also, who are you? What the sort of person are you looking for, right? And I'm not talking about just aesthetic attributes. Like, what sort of personality are you looking for? You're looking for someone who's deeply thoughtful, reflective. You're looking for someone who is, continually looking at how they can be better versions of themselves. Like, say these things, because that means that someone lands on there and they read through and goes, "This is my sort of guy." Okay, the pictures are nice. What sort of guy is he? Oh yeah, he's into this. He doesn't have to be we're into the same things, because if you're into some stuff and I'm not into it, I might read that and go, "Oh, that's really interesting. I've never really thought about that, but like, I wonder why this person loves that so much. Let me say yes to this." Have
Yeah.
some consideration. It's like you don't spend 5 minutes on your CV for your job, right? And
Yeah.
it comes down to what I said before about reactivity. When it comes to dating profile, we have a story in our head like, this is pointless, this is worthless, like da 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 da, these sorts of things, right? Oh, this is going to be hard. It doesn't matter, but it does. Like, it makes such a difference if we can just present ourselves in the way that we know we're capable of showing up as.
That shop window analogy is perfect, man. And it paints a picture so clearly. Like, if you're not putting effort into the shop window, it's a sign of where further down the line you're not going to put effort in the
Mm,
date, in your relations with the person, in the bedroom as well, in the relationship.
mm,
It tells us like a sign of, oh, okay, if they're not putting effort in here, it's likely they're not going to put in that effort in all these other stages as well. So definitely makes a lot of sense. Actually, you mentioned something that was really interesting to me too, and I think is actually quite a big thing that I had to realize personally, which was knowing what you're looking for. I
mm,
think I went through a lot of my adolescent years and then my adult or early adult years just trying to get girls who looked good, and that was really all it was. And I wasn't really looking at the personality traits or how they thought or how they looked at the world and all these other things, which are actually super important if you're going to have a relationship with someone, let alone like build with them and have family and all these things. How do you help men see that? Because I think that's probably one thing that changes their experience of dating if they actually know what they're going out there to get.
mm. Yeah, I think I really agree with you. It's something that has come up a lot actually with men I've worked with in the last 3 to 6 months. I've had a lot of coaching sessions where they've gone, I'm not really sure I want. I'm like, okay, what did you enjoy about past relationships? We'll start
Mm,
there. We'll start at your past. Like, what is it? Some of the traits that you really enjoyed about your partner, your partners. Um, which often isn't always an easy question for people to answer, because we're clouded with any negative experiences of that person. To see them in a positive light sometimes can be difficult.
definitely.
Um, Also, it was also to ask, what aspects of the relationship did you enjoy? What was it
Mm,
about relationships you enjoy? What didn't you enjoy is an important question, because it's just like, what didn't I enjoy? Maybe you felt you were with a partner who was possessive. Okay, so I don't want to be with someone who's possessive. Why do I not like that? Okay, I don't feel like I can be free. I don't feel like I can be open and honest if I have I can't. Friends are very important to me. Okay, I had a partner who's possessive and they didn't really want me to spend time with my friends. Okay, so I know my friends are really important to me. So it's important to me I'm with a partner who understands this. So you want someone who's understanding. You want someone who is on that same sort of wavelength. Cool. Um, maybe your partner, and this is something I hear a lot, in different levels, where with a partner and they don't want to do the sort of personal growth work that we're interested in. They don't want to grow. Okay, cool. So personal growth is really important for you. Maybe you want a relationship where personal growth is a central part of the relationship. Like, you want to be in a
mm,
relationship where growing and becoming a better person, but also improving your relationship is an important part of that relationship. Maybe, through questioning. And then you start to get an idea of like, okay, cool, these are the things that are important to me, these are the things I want. And you do have to sort some of these things into things that like you see as being like absolutely necessary, non-negotiables. Um, and you have to kind of also hold them really lightly. And once you've got all these things, you have to hold them quite lightly, because
mm.
sometimes we will look for signs in people that would tell us that they don't have these traits, so we can eliminate them. God, I can't say the word. Like, remove them from our search if we've
Yeah.
been dating them. Like, oh, I know I went for dinner with someone. You go for dinner with someone and they order something they've had before, right? Maybe they say, "Oh, I like this restaurant. I've come to this restaurant again. Like I'm going to order the same food I had last time." That might ring off alarm bells in my head. I'm like, "Oh God, that means this person's not very adventurous. Maybe they're not very adventurous. Oh, I want to be with
Yeah.
someone who's adventurous, who likes to try new things and new experiences." Now, that could be
Mm.
quite a quick judgment. And the reason why I say we have to be wary is because we could make a decision in that moment and say, okay, this date's not going anywhere because this person isn't as open-minded as I'd like. And then from then on in the date, we are just living out of the energy of this person isn't right. So we then just search for lots of other things. Why we have to hold it
Mm.
really lightly is like you go, okay, they're not very adventurous here, but you might realize that when it comes to maybe they just had a bad day and they just want food they know they're going to enjoy. Maybe they're feeling
Yeah.
incredibly nervous and they don't want to eat something that's going to look super messy and blah, blah, blah. There might be a reason behind what's occurring in this moment that's not obvious to you in that moment or straight away.
Yeah.
So it's just to hold them lightly. And also because some of these things we think we want, but we don't need or are not actually the things that we deeply really want in relationships. So it's holding them to a certain degree with a certain lightness and openness to the people that we meet. But it is important to do the work because to know what you want. Like I can give an example of one of my clients now. When he came to work with me probably 4 months ago, he had no idea what he wanted. He
Mm.
didn't really know what he wanted a relationship to look like. You know, what do you want a relationship to look like is also something important for us to consider. And after we did that work over the course of maybe a month and a half, you know, he met someone. And because he
Wow.
knew what he knew what he wanted a relation to look like, he was able to communicate that with her and have conversation with her about what he wanted the relation to look like. And she was like,
Yeah.
wow, it's amazing to meet a man who is able to say what he needs and wants in a relationship and listen to what I want and need. And we can come to a negotiation and an agreement. So they founded their relationship on this beautiful principle of, you know, how they wanted things to be between the two of them. And the relationship is flourishing because of it. So that's
Yeah.
why it's so important to do that sort of work yourself, but also, you know, when you do meet a prospective partner, is to be open to kind of discussing and talking about what it is, you know, what sort of relationship do you want, you know, what sort of person do you want to be with. And why I always say, you know, when it comes to um, the person, is
Mm.
like leaving physical attributes to one side because we want to get deeper. We want to get deeper into it. We don't want to be like, oh, I want her to be, you know, ladies, if you listen to this, you need to get over this height thing. Straight up. I got no time for this height thing, women. I got no time for it because
Needs to be
it,
6'3" and fucking
yeah, like, do you know what?
yeah.
What is the biggest barrier, in my opinion, to many women meeting the man of their dreams? Height. Imagine that. Imagine you could meet a man who's perfect for you, but because he's 2 inches too small, you don't want to date him. That sounds like, you know,
Wow.
that's some work to do there.
Ladies.
And guys as well, guys, like, oh, you meet a really interesting woman. Oh, she's not as pretty as I'd like her to be. Oh, I don't know if I'm going to feel attracted to her. Oh, it's like, but that stops you. That that thought process you have stops you
Mm.
from even receiving this person. You know, I think there's studies around things like attraction and physical attraction and the spark and how it wanes in a relationship over time and becomes
Yeah.
less important. We become more like attracted to the person over time. And it's like the person is what helps make a relationship, right? Not
Yeah.
the size of their feet, their height, you know, how straight their nose is. Like, I'm not saying it's all in jest, but it's like, yes, you want to be attracted to the person you're with, but
Mm.
if you're setting some really unnecessary kind of bars, you're just self-sabotaging yourself and finding a relationship that could be really good for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's very easy if you have. Because I really like the point you made about holding the things you have lightly.
Mm.
Because if you don't, you're probably going to be on an endless search because that perfect person isn't
Mm.
actually out there. And the other, like, there could be some bits that you're actually a bit more negotiable on if you like get to know the person and take them in. You could be like, actually, okay, they might not be this, but I really like enjoying like spending time with them, or I enjoy doing certain things with them. So I can accept that they may not have this thing that was on my list of things, because overall the experience is good. And you, like you said, if you have that zero policy filter, then you just
Mm.
miss out on the whole thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Exactly.
yeah. Um, coming on to another point actually, which is I guess a modern issue thing, or modern issue I like to call it. You've probably seen the rise of discussions about the high value man being
Mm.
peddled by the likes of Fresh and Fit, Kevin Samuels, the roommates, those platforms. Um, what's your opinion on this uh, definition of high value man? Is it bullshit, or is there some merit to it? What are your thoughts as someone, as a coach in this field?
This idea of high value man or high value woman has been, you know, been around for, forever. And it's very subjective. Basically, it's a very subjective term. Unless if Kevin Samuels is telling men to be a high value man, you need to do this, and do this, and those men listen, then that becomes their idea. But it's very subjective to the individual person. Um, I've listened to a bit of Kevin Samuels. Probably about last year, someone mentioned his name to me, so I did look at some of his content for probably about an hour and a half. I looked at some videos.
Mm,
And I'm not a fan, if I'm honest. I think he's rude. I think he's misogynistic. I think
yeah.
he is what's it called? One of the things as well. He's reductive.
Mm,
He kind of talks that everyone is super basic. Like we're basic. The way he's like he's basically, the way he talks is like
mm,
all men are basic and all women are basic. And I had a conversation with a friend about this actually, and he was just like, "But isn't that true for the majority of men and women?" And I had to, stop for a bit and be like, okay, are the majority of people basic? Like,
mm,
they're just simple, basic men and women. Yeah, it's true for, in many ways, majority, maybe. But I don't think if you're listening to this podcast that you necessarily see yourself as basic. So, his
mm,
his critique of men and women doesn't necessarily fit into your world, right? Like, but I also think we are capable of more than being basic. That might be where we're at right now, but over time we can evolve and become better. So
mm,
it doesn't gel well with me because I think it's, like I said, I think it's really reductive of men and women. But the whole concept of high value man, it's like, what's of value to one person might not be of value to another. Like, yeah, money, we always say money is something that, does money make a man a high value man? Not always. This means the man's got money. A man could be manipulative, cruel, blah, blah, blah. And if he's got
mm,
money, does it mean he's got high value? Well, maybe. But, I meet plenty of very wealthy, lonely men as well who have lots of money
mm,
and struggle to get dates and find a relationship. But they're quote unquote high value men. But I also, meet men who are like that and they don't
mm,
have emotional intelligence. They're not very good at being compassionate and loving. They might have intimacy issues. They might not be great at communicating. So, you know, I think there's an importance of things like purpose, like working on
mm,
purpose, on what's meaningful to you. Um, Emotional intelligence is always going to be a really good indicator for men um, and women.
mm.
It's like how you relate, how you connect, how you're going to be able to be with children in difficult times as well.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so I think that high value is a subjective term. But if we're told what high value is and we kind of adhere to that and go along with that, then maybe. But you know, Kevin Samuels, I've watched some videos. He's like, if you're a woman, you've had children, you've got less value. You know, if you're overweight, you've got less value. If once you get to like 33 plus, you've got less value.
Mm,
And is there truth in that? Some, you know what? I'm gonna be really frank. Some men really think like that. Some men
Yeah.
think, okay, she's 35, she's a single mom. Okay, I don't want anything to do with her. That's true,
Mm,
right? I'm
mm,
not gonna just remove her the truth. But some men will also take the time to get to know someone, you know,
yeah.
and like we all make mistakes in life, but we're all like we're striving to be better. That is a part of the human condition. Mostly, we're trying to be better. So as a man, I think, to be high value isn't always the obvious things. It isn't the monetary things. Like, yeah, if you follow your purpose and you're passionate and you work hard and all those things, that money will most likely come, right? In
Mm,
what you do, depending, right? I could decide that I'm going to be a really dedicated nurse and help and work in a hospital where they don't have huge funding and blah blah blah. And I could be an amazing nurse and never really earn a huge amount of money, but be incredible at what I do and be passionate and be purposeful. And I might get value in other ways. And the women I meet might see that in me and just so deeply connect to that passion and that purpose.
mm.
So I just think sometimes we desire to have blueprint for life. Like we're asking people for a blueprint for life or a
Yeah.
blueprint for everything. But it's like there's exceptions everywhere. So you can go and be a high value man. I don't know exactly the kind of attributes of a high value man. Maybe tall. He's going to be 6'3". He's going to be reasonably well built. He's going to be in decent
Yeah.
shape. He's going to be earning over 50K or something like that. All
Yeah.
these type
Six
of things,
figures
right?
is what they quote. Six
Six
figures.
six figures. Okay, yeah, 6 figures. Yeah. So women will see him as high value. Yeah, but if he's an idiot, right, or if he is unable to communicate, if he is boring, if he doesn't have any passion for what he does, right,
Mm,
he's uninteresting to spend time with, like he just might end up with lots of unhappy relationships. He'll just go through a lot of unhappy relationships. But if you developed a bit of emotional intelligence, do some, self-inquiry, reflective work, that's going to be set you in a much better position because you might go, okay, wait, I can be better at these things.
mm.
Like I said, some people look and say, oh, man's got money, I want to be with him. But I think the question I always ask is do you want to be with someone who just wants to be with you because of your money?
Yeah. You don't, because that's not you. That's not
Mm,
you. That's not you as a person. You
mm.
don't connect with money, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And look, I know of people in or of relationships like where the man is very wealthy, the woman is a stay-at-home um, mum or just stay-at-home wife. And I
Mm,
also know some horrendous stories of deep unhappiness and substance abuse and stuff because of the fact that they married a man because of the lifestyle they could have. And the man actually turned to be cruel and like evil and cold hearted and
yeah.
stuff like that. And I know of stories, maybe not as many of them, of men who just married a woman because she was young and fit and attractive. And they're also miserable, some. And obviously
Mm,
there's also some who have turned their relationship into happiness.
yeah.
But it's just like if all you're looking for and all that's important to you is someone who is good looking, right, and wealthy, you've just got to really look hard at yourself and go, like, what does that even mean? Why do you need someone to validate you?
Mm,
Why can't you make your own money? Why do you need
mm,
someone who is going to, because this whole like, I need a hot wife, I need a hot husband. Is it for you or is it just so you tell the world that you're somebody? You
mm,
just want to tell the world that you're somebody. Oh, you need a
mm,
hot wife or husband so that when you're outdoors with people, people go, oh, wow, look at who she's with. Is that how lowly you think of yourself? How about you work on how you feel about yourself first? Then maybe you won't be so obsessed with how your partner needs to look, right? I
yeah.
know that's harder work to do, but like you said before, that will ripple out into your life because just having that hot person with you, that won't change how you feel. You're still going to feel like you might not deserve. And then you get into this trap of like jealousy, controlling, possessiveness, and
Jesus.
those sorts of things can happen.
Yeah.
It's like instead of getting the external validation, do the internal work.
Mm, facts, man. Facts. I think it's because a lot of people want that black and white answer, isn't it? Both, I guess, men who want the black and white answer of what do I need to do to be the guy who is the best guy, and they feel that that means they'll be happy instead of
Mm,
actually looking at themselves. And then obviously women are probably looking at what is the guy will who can provide me the happiest life. Okay, they're gonna have loads of money and they're gonna be good looking. Yep, that ticks all the boxes. Rather than it's actually more grey than that. There's a lot more nuance to it because, like you said, the person could be good looking and wealthy, but they could be really difficult to talk to. They could be
mm,
really uninterested in you as a person. They don't care about you. And then that throws
mm,
up a whole different feeling within yourself, which doesn't meet the standard that you've set. And then obviously you look across the spectrum at men and women, and there's so much variance as you go from factor to factor that it is
mm,
actually hard to say these people are high value because maybe for some people they might be, but for others they're not. So I guess in this high value man context, what I've noticed is it generally is around trying to get women who are in a certain profession where they're professionally paid to be beautiful, or they're in particular positions which make them um, seen by a wide variety of men as attractive, and
mm,
that's what they're trying. That's like that's the sphere that they're in, and actually
mm,
in the world, it's much more nuanced than that.
mm,
Much more.
It's like and again, when you even say it, you start to see it's like that isn't about who she is. That's about the message that being with her sends to other people. It's all about show. It's all about looking good. It's like, and if you want to live your life in this way, it's like we have what I think is like this epidemic of like needing to look good all the time to other people instead of
Hmm.
actually being good. Like people need their relationships to look good to other people, but when they go home, they're miserable. It's like actually though, how about we be good? Yeah, instead of needing
Mm,
for other people to validate us as looking good, because you know they don't have to live your relationship. You do. Like you
mm,
might have children with this person. You know what are you going to do then? And then even adding to that, it's like it doesn't make for potential. Like you could meet someone who I always think of Kanye West, right? I always think of Kanye West because Kanye
yeah,
West at one point in his career, no one wanted to sign Kanye West, no one wanted to hear him rap, no one even wanted to hear about his records, right? There's women
yeah.
right now who knew Kanye West and they're like, man, I wish I stuck around now. And it's like, yeah, of course you do, because you're thinking about the money, but you know, there were people in his life, he's probably got friends or whatever who saw his potential and they were like, this man, not just the potential, but they're like, this man is going for something. And I resonate with this person as they are, right?
Mm,
They didn't just want the finished product. And I think this is something that we have to really point out in dating. It's like, everyone's always looking for the finished product. Everyone's always looking for the finished product. The man who is there, the man who already looks that way,
wow.
he's already that place in
Yeah.
his career, all these things. It's just like, but are you the finished product? Like, are
Mm,
you at all these places? It's like we're not also accounting for the fact that we have so much potential stored in us, all of us, to do great things. It's like if we're all only looking for the people that have made it or perceived to have made it, right? You're just
mm,
negating a lot of people who are just 1 or 2 years away from being incredible human beings, not just financially, but just as a person, and actually
yeah.
not allowing yourself to see deeper into the person, to see, the nuances of their passion and the purpose they're following and all these sorts of things.
Yeah. Yeah. Really think social media has probably played a big factor in there because it's the like you said, the social signals which keep you trapped in that loop of looking for something which doesn't exist or is fabricated in your head because you're only looking at certain elements of a person. I know I fell into
Mm,
that myself for years. I was just looking for where's the hot girls. That's it. Nothing else
mm,
matters.
mm,
And you miss like you even ignore signals that actually this is not a good situation to be in. You miss that, and then when it blows up in your face, you're like, yeah, I probably could have seen that coming. Or just in simple terms, just like the limited time you have, if you want to enjoy it more, then you should probably be looking out for certain things so that you're not in a situation where you're wasting that time not enjoying the relationships that you're in, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Um, David, we're coming towards the end of the podcast, and I've really enjoyed it. You've given me a lot of perspective on things which I hadn't really thought about so much, especially the compassion one, and not not feeling like someone's getting one over you, because I fall into that a little bit sometimes. So thank you for that little bit there, especially. One of the last questions I wanted to ask you, and I think it could be really important for people listening to, especially men who are looking to improve their dating lives. What fundamentals can they start working on today, right after they listen to this, that will help them in the path of improving what they bring to the market in terms of dating?
Mm. 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 I've got 2 words: curiosity. Be deeply
Mm,
curious about other people. Be deeply curious about who they are. That means, put aside a lot of assumptions and judgments and be curious
mm,
about that person. Take the time to get to know them.
mm,
The other word is vulnerability. Is have the vulnerability to lead, the vulnerability to open and speak about yourself, have the vulnerability to take the action that could lead to rejection or hurt or pain, and be willing to do those things. Because if you start to do those things more, both of those,
mm,
curiosity and vulnerability, your dating life will shift. It will just change. Because maybe you're going on dates and you're like, this is boring, I'm not meeting anyone interesting. It's like, okay, how could I be more curious about people? How could I be more vulnerable? Again, if you're finding that you're not getting any dates, then vulnerability, be more curious about yourself and also vulnerable about what you find, about who you are, what you enjoy. We talked about that around the dating profile.
mm,
And if you are in the fledglings of a relationship, when there's difficult times and there's emotions that come up that are difficult to deal with, anger, frustration, jealousy, again, be curious within yourself about what's there, why are you feeling that way, what's happened, what's maybe in the past that caused you to feel this way, and then be vulnerable and share openly and take that action. Like, vulnerability isn't always telling someone your sob story. Vulnerability sometimes is taking
yeah,
the action to like ask someone out on a date, or to arrange a really beautiful date, or in your relationship even, the vulnerability is to like lead the relationship towards a beautiful place, a vision that's amazing for you. So like curiosity and
mm,
vulnerability, I think, are 2 of the things that we can bring into our dating lives that can really transform the experience of what we're having in dating.
mm, mm. Yeah, I think the importance of curiosity is massive, because you learn more about the people that you're speaking with. If you're curious, that's where you can actually get a better gauge of who you're with, if you're curious about who they are, right? Yeah, I like
Exactly.
that.
And we can learn so much about ourselves as well through that. Like, when someone tells a story about something and we're curious and we ask and we, probe and we want to learn more, because we also get to experience that and be like, how would we feel if we were them? How would we feel in that circumstance? And then we can share that with someone, and it really creates a deeper conversation, deeper connections.
Mm. Thanks a lot for your time today, David. I really appreciate it, and you've dropped bare gems today, which I think a lot of people listening to will hopefully take on board and actually put action into. Um, for people that want to follow your podcast, or want to start doing coaching with you, or any of the other events that you might have over the coming year, or in the near future, how can they find you?
Yeah, the best place to find me really is Instagram, at the authentic man underscore. I talk about, everything that everything we talked about today comes up in what we're
Mm.
talking about. If you want to work with me, the best place again probably is Instagram. Send me a message if you're interested, or email. Some people prefer email. Hello at theauthenticman.net. Um, but yeah, I'm working now with individuals and also cultivating. I've got a group program around masculinity, relationships, intimacy that's coming up in June and July. So if that's something that sounds, if what you've heard me say today is something that you would like to experience more and bring into your life more, then this program would be perfect for you. So just get in contact with me in either of those places to have more conversation about that.
You heard it, people. Hit my man up at those places: Instagram, email. It's all there for you, and I'll put that in the description as well on YouTube or on Spotify if you're listening there. Yeah, thanks a lot again, David, for listening, for being on the podcast. And for everyone listening, thanks again for jumping on. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you on the next episode. Bless.
Ciao.